The underestimated arrival. The Meridian star system blazed with the light of two massive fleets locked in a tense standoff. For 3 standard months, the Zephyrian Empire and the Hegemony Coalition had faced each other across the void, each waiting for the other to make the first move. The prize was worth the wait. Meridian 4, a world rich in rare minerals that could power starships for centuries. Admiral Krexthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker, a vessel so massive it could house entire cities within its armored hull. His reptilian features were set in a permanent scowl as he surveyed the enemy fleet through the massive viewports. The Zephyrians had evolved from apex predators, and their military doctrine reflected this heritage. They built their ships like flying fortresses designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower and intimidation. "Status report," Krexthon demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of star systems. "Hegemony forces remain in defensive formation around Meridian 4, reported his tactical officer. 237 heavy cruisers, 68 dreadnoughts, and their command carrier Eternal Dominion. They show no signs of backing down." Krexthon's claws scraped against the metal railing. The Hegemony Coalition was a confederation of machine-enhanced species who fought with cold, calculated efficiency. Their ships were sleek and angular, bristling with energy weapons that could slice through planetary crust. Led by Overlord Quill, a cybernetic being whose organic components had been replaced by quantum processors, they were as relentless as they were emotionless. "Incoming transmission from Overlord Quill," announced the communications officer. The holographic image of Quill materialized before Krexthon. Where the Zephyrian admiral was all scales and fury, Quill was a study in mechanical precision. Half of the Overlord's face was organic, the other half a seamless blend of metal and circuitry that pulsed with blue light. "Admiral Krexthon," Quill's voice carried no emotion, like a computer analyzing data. "Your fleet has been holding position for 847.3 hours. This inefficiency is distasteful. The Zephyrian Empire does not yield to mechanical upstarts." Krexthon snarled, "Meridian 4 will be ours. Probability of Zephyrian victory, 34.7%. Probability of coalition victory, 65.3%. Logic dictates you should withdraw." Before Krexthon could respond with the violent retort forming in his throat, alarms began blaring throughout both fleets. Sensor operators on hundreds of ships suddenly detected something impossible. A new fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Impossible," Krexthon breathed, staring at the tactical display. "How did they get past our sensor nets?" The answer became clear as the new arrivals came into focus. 8 small vessels, none larger than one of the Worldbreaker's shuttle bays, hung in space like insects next to giants. Their hulls were a patchwork of different metals and materials, clearly built for function rather than intimidation. On the bridge of the lead vessel, the Pioneer's Dream, Captain Elena Vasquez studied the massive alien fleets with calm brown eyes. At 42, she had spent most of her adult life in the asteroid belts of her home system, extracting precious metals from rocks no bigger than houses. The transition from miner to explorer had been natural. Both jobs required patience, precision, and the ability to find value where others saw only empty space. "Well, would you look at that?" she murmured, watching the sensor readings. "Looks like we've stumbled into someone else's party." Dr. Marcus Chen, the expedition's xenobiologist and diplomatic advisor, moved to stand beside her. His scientific mind was already analyzing the alien ship designs, cataloging differences in construction techniques and weapon configurations. 2 distinct technological philosophies, he observed. The larger ships appear to favor brute force approaches, while the angular vessels show more sophisticated energy management systems. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communications station, "we're receiving multiple hails from both fleets. They're demanding identification." Vasquez settled into her command chair, a piece of equipment that had been salvaged from a decommissioned mining vessel and modified for space exploration. "Open a channel to both fleets, let's see what we're dealing with." The main screen split to show both alien commanders. Crexton's reptilian features were twisted in confusion and growing anger, while Quill's mechanical components whirred as he processed this new variable. Unknown vessels. Crexton's voice boomed across the communication channel. You have entered a restricted military zone. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed. Quill's response was more measured but equally threatening. Scans indicate your vessels are of unknown configuration. State your allegiance and intentions or face elimination. Captain Vasquez had dealt with territorial disputes in the asteroid belts, where miners would fight over claims with violence that could shatter mountains. She recognized the posturing for what it was, but she also understood that these beings commanded firepower that could sterilize planets. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Human Exploration Fleet, she replied, calmly. We're here on a peaceful scientific mission. We've established a small research colony on Meridian 5's moon to study the unique mineral formations there. Both alien commanders stared at her, as if she had claimed to be made of starlight. Crexton was the first to recover, letting out a laugh that sounded like grinding stone. Humans? He sneered. I've heard of your species, primitive mammals from the outer rim who barely mastered fire when the Zephyrian Empire was conquering galaxies. Your fleet consists of 8 vessels that wouldn't qualify as escape pods on my ships. Quill's mechanical eye focused on the human vessels with new interest. Database indicates humans achieved spaceflight only 387 years ago. Technological assessment, inferior. Military threat level, negligible. Your research colony is in a combat zone. Crexton continued, his tone growing more aggressive. Remove your people immediately and leave this system. You have 1 solar hour to comply. Vasquez felt her jaw tighten. In the asteroid belts, she had learned that bullies only understood strength, but she also knew that 23 human researchers were currently living in the small habitat they had built on Meridian 5's moon. These were scientists, teachers, and engineers who had volunteered to expand humanity's knowledge of the universe. She would not abandon them to satisfy alien arrogance. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, she replied evenly. Our colony was established legally in unclaimed space. Our people have done nothing wrong, and I won't order them to abandon their work because you two are having a dispute. The silence that followed was broken by laughter from both alien bridges. Crexton's amusement was loud and mocking, while the sound from Quill's ship was a mechanical approximation that somehow managed to convey the same dismissive contempt. You dare to defy the Zephyrian Empire? Crexton roared. Your pathetic flotilla would be atomized before you could even target our shields. Probability of human fleet surviving combat engagement, 0.003%. Quill added with mechanical precision. Recommend immediate withdrawal to avoid unnecessary destruction. Dr. Chen stepped forward, activating the communication system. Respected commanders, surely there's room in this vast system for all of us. Our research has no military applications, and we pose no threat to either of your operations. The only research you'll be conducting is into the composition of vacuum. Crexton snapped. Unless you leave now. Vasquez closed the communication channel and turned to her crew. The bridge of the Pioneer's dream was cramped compared to the alien vessels, but every person there was someone she trusted with her life. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might be the first humans to make contact with hostile alien species. Options? She asked simply. We could try to evacuate the colony, suggested Lieutenant Kim. The shuttles could make multiple trips. In 1 hour? Chief Engineer Rodriguez shook his head. Not possible. Besides, our people signed up for a 2-year research mission. Some of their experiments are just reaching critical phases. Dr. Chen was studying the tactical displays with scientific fascination. Captain, I'm detecting something interesting about their fleet formations. Both sides are positioned for conventional warfare, ship-to-ship combat at medium range. Their tactics appear to be based on attrition through superior firepower. What are you thinking, Doc? In the asteroid belts, we learned to be creative with limited resources, Chen replied. These aliens have grown comfortable with overwhelming force. They may not be prepared for unconventional approaches. Vasquez nodded slowly. During her Mining days. She had seen small, agile ships outmaneuver massive corporate vessels through superior piloting and creative thinking. The principles that worked in the belts might work here, though the stakes were infinitely higher. All ships, she announced over the fleet communication channel, form up on the Dream. We're going to show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our people. The 8 human ships moved into a loose formation that would have made any traditional military commander cringe. Instead of a disciplined battle line, they spread out in what appeared to be random positions. The alien observers noted this, with a mixture of amusement and contempt. "Look at them," Crexton laughed to his officers. "They don't even know how to form a proper battle formation. This will be over in minutes. Target the largest human vessel," Quill commanded his fleet. "Eliminating their command ship will cause immediate surrender." Both alien fleets began moving toward the human formation, their massive ships sliding through space with ponderous grace. The disparity in size was staggering. The smallest Zephyrian cruiser was 50 times larger than the Pioneer's Dream. But as the distance closed, something unexpected happened. The human ships suddenly accelerated at rates that should have been impossible for vessels their size. They darted and weaved through space like schools of fish avoiding predators, their movements seemingly random but somehow coordinated. "What in the void are they doing?" Crexton demanded as his gunners tried to track targets that moved like nothing they had ever encountered. The answer came when the first human ship, the asteroid Dancer, slipped between 2 Zephyrian cruisers and fired a spread of missiles. These weren't the massive warheads that Galactic powers used, but small intelligent projectiles that struck with surgical precision at shield generators and sensor arrays. Explosions bloomed along the hull of the cruiser Bone Crusher as its defenses went offline. Before the crew could react, 2 more human ships swept in from different angles, their weapons targeting specific systems rather than attempting to destroy the entire vessel. "Impossible!" Crexton roared as damage reports flooded in. "How are they penetrating our shields?" The answer lay in humanity's approach to problem-solving. While the aliens had developed weapons designed to overwhelm massive targets, humans had learned to find the weak points in systems much larger than themselves. Every asteroid miner knew how to split a mountain-sized rock with a precisely placed charge. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're not trying to destroy our ships. They're systematically disabling our weapons and engines." Meanwhile, the Hegemony Coalition was experiencing similar difficulties. Their precise targeting computers, designed to track large vessels in predictable patterns, couldn't keep up with the erratic movements of the human fleet. Overlord Quill processed thousands of calculations per second, but the humans seemed to anticipate his predictions and counter them. "This is not possible," Quill stated flatly as his own ships began reporting system failures. "Their technology should be inferior to ours." Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the communication channels, broadcasting to both alien fleets. "You're right about our technology being different," he said calmly. "But you made a mistake thinking different meant inferior. We humans have spent centuries learning to do more with less. We've had to be creative because we couldn't rely on overwhelming force." Captain Vasquez guided the Pioneer's Dream through a maneuver that would have been suicidal for a larger vessel, slipping through a gap in the Zephyrian formation that was barely wider than her ship. As she passed, her crew launched a spread of electromagnetic pulse devices that disabled the communications arrays of 3 enemy vessels. "You see," she announced over the open channel, "we don't fight the way you expect because we can't. We're too small, too few, and too stubborn to give up. So we learned to fight smart instead of fighting hard." The battle continued for another 20 minutes, but the outcome was becoming clear. The massive alien fleets, designed to dominate through superior firepower, found themselves being systematically dismantled by an enemy they couldn't hit. The human ships moved like ghosts through space, striking at critical systems and disappearing before return fire could find them. Finally, as the flagship of the Hegemony Coalition lost its 3rd engine bank to a precisely targeted human torpedo, Overlord Quill's mechanical voice cut through the chaos. "Cease fire," he commanded, requesting immediate parley with human commander. Crexton, watching his own fleet's effectiveness plummet as more ships reported critical system failures, growled in frustration. The Zephyrian Empire also requests discussion. Captain Vasquez allowed herself a small smile as she ordered her fleet to assume a defensive formation. Dr. Chen, looks like they're ready to talk after all. The alien commanders had learned their first lesson about humanity. Never underestimate a species that has learned to thrive against impossible odds. The price of arrogance. The emergency meeting convened in neutral space with all three fleets maintaining careful distances from each other. The Zephyrian and Hegemony vessels hung in space like wounded giants, their hulls scarred from precisely targeted human attacks. Engineering crews worked frantically to restore critical systems while their commanders tried to understand how such a small force had managed to neutralize ships hundreds of times their size. Admiral Crexton paced his command deck like a caged predator, his claws leaving scratches in the metal floor. His tactical officers huddled around their displays, analyzing the battle data with expressions of disbelief. "Explain to me," Crexton snarled, "how 8 primitive vessels disabled 43 of our ships without losing a single unit of their own." Senior Tactical Officer Zexara, her scales pale with stress, looked up from her console. "Admiral, their attack patterns defy all conventional warfare doctrine. They targeted subsystems instead of attempting to destroy entire vessels. Our defensive strategies are built around withstanding massive energy discharges, not surgical strikes against specific components." Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Dominion, Overlord Quill processed the battle data through his quantum neural network. Every calculation led to the same impossible conclusion. The humans had achieved tactical superiority through methods that shouldn't have worked. "Combat efficiency analysis complete," announced his tactical subroutine. "Human forces demonstrated 847% greater effectiveness than projected. Recommend immediate strategy revision." "The probability matrices were incorrect," Quill stated, his mechanical voice carrying a note of something that might have been frustration. "We must recalculate human capabilities based on observed performance rather than technological assumptions." Captain Vasquez reviewed the damage reports from both alien fleets with Dr. Chen and her senior staff. The human ships had sustained minor damage, mostly to their electromagnetic shielding systems, but all vessels remained fully operational. "They're requesting a formal parley," reported Lieutenant Kim. "Both commanders want to meet face-to-face." "Any particular reason they want to chat now?" asked Chief Engineer Rodriguez, his tone dry. "Seems like they were pretty talkative before we started shooting." Dr. Chen studied the alien fleet formations with scientific interest. "They're adapting faster than I expected. Look at their positioning. Both fleets have reorganized into smaller, more flexible units. They're learning from what happened." Vasquez nodded grimly. "Which means round 2 is going to be a lot harder. These aren't stupid beings, just arrogant ones. They won't make the same mistakes twice." The parley took place aboard a neutral space station that had been hastily erected using construction drones from all three fleets. The meeting room was sparse, containing only a circular table and basic life support systems that could accommodate the different atmospheric requirements of each species. Admiral Crexton arrived first, his massive frame filling the doorway as he entered. The Zephyrian warrior was even more imposing in person, standing nearly 8 feet tall with scales that seemed to absorb light. His forearms were muscled like tree trunks, and his predator's eyes missed nothing as he surveyed the room. "Overlord," Quill entered with mechanical precision, his footsteps perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of his internal processors. The cybernetic being was a study in contrasts, organic and artificial components seamlessly integrated into a form that was both beautiful and terrifying. Captain Vasquez entered last, and the difference was striking. Where the aliens commanded, through intimidation and technological superiority, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had earned respect through competence rather than conquest. Dr. Chen accompanied her, his scientific instruments already scanning their alien counterparts with polite curiosity. "So," Vasquez said as they took their seats, "I assume you didn't call this meeting to surrender." Crexton's laugh was like breaking stone. "Surrender? Your fleet may have caught us off guard, but you face the combined might of 2 galactic empires. Do you seriously believe 8 small ships can stand against over 400 vessels?" Probability of human victory in extended engagement, 12.7%, Quill added, his calculations running in real time. However, probability of acceptable losses to coalition forces, 3.4%. Unacceptable parameters for continued conflict. Dr. Chen leaned forward, his demeanor that of a scientist presenting fascinating data. You're both making the same error. In your calculations, you're assuming this is about victory in the traditional sense. What other sense is there? Crexthon demanded. Survival, Vasquez replied simply. You're thinking like conquerors. We're thinking like humans. There's a difference. She activated a small holographic projector, displaying tactical data from the recent engagement. You attacked us expecting a conventional battle, ship-to-ship combat, energy weapons at medium range, victory through superior firepower. That's not how humans fight when we're outgunned. The hologram showed the movement patterns of the human fleet, tracking their unconventional attack runs and target selection. We've been the underdog for our entire history. We learned to win by not fighting the battles our enemies wanted us to fight. Impossible, Crexton growled. Numbers don't lie. Mass and firepower determine victory. Do they? Dr. Chen asked, pulling up historical data on his tablet. Admiral, how many worlds has the Zephyrian Empire conquered in the past century? 47 systems, Crexton replied with pride. And how many rebellions have you faced in that same period? The alien, Admiral's expression darkened. 17, but those were suppressed. At what cost? How many ships? How many lives? How much time and resources diverted from expansion to maintain control? Chen continued his questioning with the persistence of a scientist uncovering truth. Overlord Quill, your coalition has similar statistics, doesn't it? Quill's processors whirred as he accessed his databases. Affirmative. Pacification operations consume 34.7% of our military resources annually. You see the pattern, Vasquez explained. You're both so focused on being strong enough to crush any opposition that you've forgotten how to avoid making enemies, in the first place. Crexton slammed one of his fists on the table, causing the metal to ring like a bell. You lecture us about making enemies while you defy our direct orders? I'm not defying anything, Vasquez replied calmly. I'm protecting my people and fulfilling their legal right to conduct peaceful research. The fact that you see this as defiance says more about your empire than it does about us. Your people are in a combat zone, Quill stated with mechanical precision. Logic dictates their removal for safety purposes. Our people were here first, Dr. Chen pointed out. We established our research station 3 months before either of your fleets arrived. If anything, you're the ones who created the combat zone around us. The revelation struck both alien commanders like a physical blow. Their intelligence services had failed to detect the human presence because they had been looking for military installations, not scientific research stations. Impossible, Crexton muttered. Our sensors would have detected any settlement. Your sensors were looking for weapons signatures and large energy emissions, Chen explained patiently. Our research station runs on fusion power and maintains minimal electromagnetic signatures to avoid interfering with our experiments. We're practically invisible to military sensors. Quill's optical sensors focused on the human data with new interest. You have been observing our fleet movements for 97.3 days. Every ship, every patrol pattern, every communication frequency, Vasquez confirmed. We've been watching you watch each other while you completely ignored us. That's how we knew exactly where to hit you when you finally attacked. The silence that followed was profound. Both alien commanders were processing the implications of what they had just learned. The humans hadn't just defeated them in battle. They had been studying them for months, learning their patterns and weaknesses while remaining completely undetected. What do you want? Crexton finally asked, his voice lacking its previous arrogance. What we've always wanted, Vasquez replied, to be left alone to do our work. Our research team is making discoveries that could benefit everyone, including your species. But they need time and safety to complete their studies. And in exchange? Quill inquired. Dr. Chen smiled. the expression of a scientist about to reveal exciting news. We share our findings. The mineral formations on Meridian 5's moon aren't just rare, they're unique. The crystalline structures we've discovered could revolutionize energy storage and transfer. Instead of fighting over this system, we could all benefit from cooperation. Crexthan's predatory instincts warred with his strategic mind. The idea of cooperation with smaller species went against everything the Zephyrian Empire represented, but the tactical demonstration the humans had provided was impossible to ignore. "You would share advanced technology with us?" he asked suspiciously. "What prevents us from simply taking it after eliminating your research team?" Vasquez laughed, a sound that contained no humor. "Admiral, you just spent the last hour trying to eliminate 8 of our ships and failed. Our research team has been preparing for the possibility of hostile contact for months. If you want to try storming their facilities, be my guest. Just remember that we've had time to prepare." "She is not bluffing," Quill announced after running probability calculations. "Human defensive preparations likely include methods we have not anticipated, based on observed tactical creativity." Dr. Chen leaned back in his chair, his expression becoming more serious. "There's something else you both need to understand. This isn't just about one star system or one research station. Word of this encounter is already spreading throughout the galaxy." He activated another holographic display, showing communication patterns radiating outward from the Meridian system. Every species that has ever been dismissed as primitive or insignificant by the major powers is watching what happens here. You've just learned that small can be mighty, but they're learning it too. The implications hit both alien commanders simultaneously. If a single human fleet could neutralize hundreds of their best ships, what could a coordinated alliance of underestimated species accomplish? "You're threatening us," Crexthan accused, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm informing you," Chen corrected. "The galaxy is changing. You can adapt with the times or be left behind by them." Overlord Quill's processors worked at maximum capacity, running scenarios and calculating probabilities. After several seconds of intensive calculation, he reached a conclusion that surprised even his own programming. "Cooperation proposal has merit," he announced. "Efficiency gains from shared technological development exceed projected benefits of continued conflict." Admiral Crexthan stared at his longtime enemy with amazement. "You would ally with these humans?" "Not ally," Quill corrected with mechanical precision. "Collaborate. The humans have demonstrated tactical and technological innovations that could benefit all parties. Logic suggests cooperation is the optimal strategy." Vasquez looked between the 2 alien commanders, recognizing the moment when the balance of power shifts. "We're not asking you to be friends. We're asking you to be smart. There's enough in this system for everyone, but only if we work together instead of fighting over the scraps." The negotiations continued for several more hours, hammering out the details of an unprecedented agreement. The Zephyrian Empire and Hegemony Coalition would establish a joint research partnership with the human colony, sharing resources and expertise in exchange for access to the unique discoveries being made on Meridian 5's moon. As the 3 species worked out the practical details of their cooperation, something remarkable happened. The rigid hierarchies and traditional thinking that had defined galactic politics for millennia began to crack. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had demonstrated that the old ways of doing things were no longer sufficient. Captain Vasquez returned to the Pioneer's dream as the agreement was finalized, her small fleet now recognized as equals by 2 of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Dr. Chen accompanied her, already making plans for the expanded research programs that would result from their newfound cooperation. "Think it will work?" Lieutenant Kim asked as they watched the alien fleets begin their withdrawal to predetermined positions around the system. "For now," Vasquez replied thoughtfully. "They're smart enough to adapt when they have to. The question is whether they're wise enough to keep adapting." 3 months later, the Meridian Accords were signed by 17 different species, establishing the first truly collaborative research initiative in galactic history. The small human colony on Meridian 5's moon had become the center of a scientific revolution that would reshape interstellar relations for generations to come. And in the records of both the Zephyrian Empire and the Hegemony Coalition, a new entry appeared in their tactical databases. Never underestimate a species that has learned to thrive against impossible odds. The humans have shown us that sometimes the smallest fleet can change the course of the entire galaxy. The age of human expansion had begun, not through conquest, but through the simple act of refusing to be dismissed. They had laughed at the small fleet until they realized it belonged to a species that had spent millennia learning that survival required more than size and strength. It required ingenuity, determination, and the absolute refusal to give up when faced with impossible odds. These were the qualities that would carry humanity to the stars, one small victory at a time.